Hello my dear art friends, in this video I will show you how I draw hyper-realistic iris, really detailed one. I uploaded a speeded tutorial on my YouTube channel, but this tutorial will be more detailed. I will show you also the reference photo. I will explain more about the tools, how to use them, how to clean them, and so on. All this during the real-time video, so hopefully it will be helpful for you. These are materials I will be using: a smooth Bristol paper, graphite pencils, namely HB, 2B, 4B and 6B pencil, pencil eraser for erasing details, but don't worry, if you don't have a pencil eraser you can use a kneaded eraser shaped into a point or an ordinary eraser with sharp edges, and also blending tools, soft paintbrush and blending stump. So this is the reference photo. It is an eye, the very beautiful eye of Ida Elina. She shares some beautiful eye makeup on her Instagram, and I really love her eyes, so that's why I decided to draw one of them. You're the first who I shared the photo reference with, so this is how the drawing will look like, hopefully, in the end. So nobody knows. You can see that the iris is a circle because we are looking at the eye from the front view, but the circle is not, we can't see all of it. It's actually hidden with the upper eyelid. Some of the eyes are covered also with the lower part of the eye, with the lower eyelid, but it really depends on the type of an eye, because some eyes are wider, more round, and some of them are more closed. So be careful about this. Just look at the reference carefully, because all of the eyes might look a little different, but in this case the iris is hidden with the upper part of the lid. So you can see that it is a circle. It would be a circle if you can see all of it, and also because we are looking at it from the front view, the pupil is in the middle, just in the center of the iris. So just be careful about this. Try to draw it really in the center of the eye. What is really important in realism is please pay attention to the light before you start shading the iris. We need to find the light source where the light is coming from and where the light reflection will be. Actually, you know that the iris has a convex form, so in this drawing, in this photo, the light is probably coming from the top. As you can see, it creates the light reflection in here, so the light is coming through the lashes actually and create little reflection. Or maybe the light is coming from just from the frontal view, but there is something covering the source, a mobile phone or a camera or anything or whatever. But anyway, in this picture the light reflection is in the top part or in the upper part of the iris. Also, the size of the pupil, the black dot in the center, depends on the amount of light entering the eye. So the more light there is, the smaller pupil gets. In this picture, it's just a regular normal size of the pupil. Also, you can see that because the light is coming from the top, there is a shadow under the eyelid, under the upper eyelid. So the iris is really dark on the top, under the eyelid or below the eyelid, so we are going to darken it in the end with the 6B pencil. I will explain it all in the further video. And also the lightest part of the iris is at the bottom part. Actually, there are some little dots and shapes which are dark, but it's because the iris has this kind of color or structure. But if there wasn't this shape, there would be really the lightest part of the iris. It's because of the lens and of the convex form and the light. So this is how it goes. As always, I start with the basic shape. I already made a tutorial on drawing the basic shape of an eye, but here we're focusing only on the iris shape, which is not so hard to draw, especially from the front view. Before I start shading, I try to draw little guidelines of some special features in it. For example, in this beautiful eye, there are not only the structural spokes, but also some various shapes and different values. And I also add little texture as a basic shading, and I blend it finally softly with a paintbrush. Everybody asks me about the brush I use for the blending. I usually do not share all of the information on my social media, so I will share it here with you. I'm using synthetic soft paintbrush from Da Vinci. It is a medium long hair brush. I use the filbert shape because it is the best shape for me to blend with. For sure, try not to use rounded brushes, which are great, for example, for watercolors. They simply won't be able to blend it. So, and especially with those with the longer hairs. But I do not recommend all the rounded brushes because they just will go over the drawing, but they are not so stable, so they won't be able to blend at all. Right now I'm adding a little wrinkle around the pupil. Most of eyes have it, but it depends on the reference you're drawing from, so watch it carefully during your drawing. And I'm using only H pencil to do it in the beginning, and then I will darken some parts with softer pencils according to the reference. Now I'm adding little darker values, especially trying to add the darkest and the most significant parts in the iris. They will be usually darkened in the end as well. As an alternative to a paintbrush, I would recommend to use soft tissue and to wrap it around your finger and just simply go over the drawing with the pressure you need. If you put a little more pressure in that, you will see that most of the strokes will go away or will be blended away. If you put there just little amount of pressure, then you will see that it's just little softening the structure and the pencil strokes, and it simply keeps some texture in it. Now I will take a softer pencil 3B to darken the edge of the iris. Again, most of eyes have the edge dark, so try to draw it dark as well. If you look at any iris closely, you will see there is not just a dark band or line. There are little streaks or races, or how you call it in English, coming to the rest of the iris, to the colored part. So let's draw those little sparks or those little dark shapes as well. I will also darken the other darkest parts while having 3B in my hand. It means those little tear shapes in the lower part of the iris and also the ring around the pupil. You can see also here there are not just simple lines, but there are lines plus some special little other shapes. So don't be focused only on some thin lines, but it depends it depends on the reference you're drawing from. I already saw some eyes which have like just thin lines in the middle part of the iris, in the middle of band, and that's it, but it really depends on the reference. All the graphite pencils I use in this drawing are from Faber-Castell. I must be honest with you, lately I just prefer them to draw with. I don't know why, but they're so easy to blend. I did not realize that before, but they produce much more graphite than, for example, the Kohinoor pencils. That's why I preferred Kohinoor pencils before. But right now I feel like it's much more it's much easier to get the darker value, because you don't have to push on the pencil and you don't have to draw so many layers to get the darker value. So I just simply take for example 4B pencil from Faber-Castell, draw a soft light layer with this pencil, and then I blend it. I don't like the texture without blending, but when I blend it, it's much better for me because it looks just so smooth and soft. So what I recommend is to use Faber-Castell pencils when you want to get your pictures or your drawings darker, because you don't need to put there so many layers, because it produces more graphite than, for example, Kohinoor pencils. This is just my opinion, and I noticed this earlier, but I didn't really like it, and now I feel like it's alright when you blend it with a soft paintbrush or with a soft tissue, or when you blend, for example, some little areas with the blending stump. So that's just a little note. Now I will take 4B pencil, it's a little softer pencil than 3B, great, and darken the darkest parts of the edge. I keep looking at the reference all the time because there are so many little details, all those little erases, and some of them have little round shape, some of them have sharper shape, some of them are lines, or some of them are wider shapes, just formed into a point. But the more details you will draw, the more realistic your drawing will look like. I really enjoy drawing those little details. I have a feeling this is the reason I decided to go through this journey to draw realistic drawings. Also, let me know why you decided to draw realism, because many artists just do not take realism as art, and I strictly do not agree. Not just because I draw realism, but because simply who can say this is art and this is not? Nobody. I think art is anything created with an intention by a human, which can simply help you to express anything, which can help anybody to feel anything. I think that we don't have the right to define art and to give them any boundaries at all. Okay, I promise now I will focus on explaining the tutorial, but I have a feeling you as my patrons are a little closer to me, so I wanted to share this one and to be honest with you, so sorry for that. So I will also add some more dark texture in the rest of the iris in the middle colored band, also using 4B pencil. Again, I'm trying to connect everything together, because before I drew really dark edge, dark ring around the pupil, and then I drew light shading in the middle part, in the middle band of the iris. So right now what I do, I try to connect all of it together. So I draw various kinds of lines and shapes just between the ring around the pupil and between the edge to connect all of it together. Also what I do, I try to push a little more the pencil when I'm in the edge part and in the ring part, and then I really try to release the pressure gradually to create some gradual effect of the line. So it will be darker in the beginning and it will be gradually lighter. After creating the texture, I use a blending stump to blend all the strokes together and basically to soften all the lines. And every time you add more layers and blend it together, it definitely adds some depth to it and makes your drawing look more realistic. And now I just continue doing the same with the left side. I will also use 4B pencil to darken the edge. To make your iris look more natural, do not forget to blend the edge of the iris with a blending stump to make it look softer, to make the edge look softer. Something like gradually merging the iris and the white part of the eyeball. the edge is not really sharp in the real life. And again, you can see me, I do not draw only dark strip on the edge, but I create little lines on the edge. On this side there are not so many erases as on the other side. Also, I add some gradual shading to it, but this is something that really also depends on the reference, because some iris can have a really significant hard edges, and some can have gradual soft transitions coming to the colored part, the colored middle band. So it might differ and nothing is wrong. Just if you want to make it realistic and look like the photo, just focus on the photo and do not follow these rules I tell you, because it's really depending on the object you're drawing. I will also create the darker values in the middle strip of the iris using HB pencil to draw the guideline. Where the shapes will be and what shapes it will be, and then I will use 4B pencil to darken it. Of course, after the shading process I will use a blending stamp to blend it all together and soften the lines and edges. Also, here you can see that I use a blending stamp for blending the little areas, the details, because it's sharpened into a point. But if I blend, for example, the whole iris and I don't want the structure and the texture I drew to fade away, because I want the lines to be visible, I use the paintbrush to blend it, and yeah, it's just great for the larger areas and for softer blending effect. And I also use a pencil eraser to add some highlights to it, because if you look at the iris, there are also some really light, almost white lines and dots and shapes. It can be a light color of the iris, or it means that it's a lighter value in the gray scale, or it can be a highlight caused by the light. Now we will take the softest pencil I have. In the normal set of graphite pencils, it's 8B or 9B pencil. But these are still not dark enough for me, so I use usually graphite aquarelle pencil 6B, a black color, and I fill the pupil with it. Be careful while drawing around the light reflection, because it's impossible to erase all of the black color. Now I use 4B pencil to darken the area around the pupil and blend it all together with a blending stamp. Because, as I said before, the blending stamp is much more effective blending tool. So here, for example, in the iris, it's great, just great to blend the pupil and the little lighter ring around it together, and just to merge it and create some nice gradient. So this is really perfect. Also, it's great to soften the edge of the iris and to merge it into the sclera. And be careful while using the blending stump to blend the black colored pencils, because the tip of the stump absorbs the black color and even some other dark values drawn with softer graphite pencils. And then you could use the tip to blend some lighter values, so there can be some unwanted smudges in it. Please try not to do this, and make sure to use always clean blending stump before you blend the light values, because the dirty stump can cause some unwanted smudges in it, and you just don't want to ruin your drawing because of it. And maybe you can fix it with a kneaded eraser. If this happens to you, just use a kneaded eraser and shape it into the form you want to erase, actually, and try to tap it on the drawing or the smudges you want to erase. Just be careful, be really gentle while doing it, and I think that most of the graphite in the smudges will be absorbed, but this is not certain thing. It's always better to prevent from these smudges. So I would have a tip for you. The blending stump has usually two ends with tip, so try to use one of the ends for the lighter values and the other one for the darker values, so you won't have any problem with the smudges at all, and you don't have to clean it all the time. If you want to clean it, or if you want if you have, for example, blending stump with only one tip, I don't know, just use a sandpaper and rub it over the sandpaper a few times, and you will see that it really helps you to clean the blending stump. Also, it helps you to reform or reshape the blending stump into a point again. So this is the way how to clean it. Or you can try to rub it on a paper with some texture, but it will take you a really long time to clean it. So I really recommend to use the sandpaper. And in the end, I just add some more details according to the reference. I try to darken the most significant shapes and lines with 4B pencil, and then create even more texture. This light little lines between these darkest parts with HB pencil. These thin, small details will again add more realistic looks to your drawing. So the more details you draw, the more realistic look you will achieve. And I will try to connect the dark edge with the colored middle band of the iris. I will add some little lines just coming to the colored part, the lighter part of the iris, because we don't want it to look really separated. We want to merge it together a little bit, because this is how the natural look of the iris is. So that's why I try to make it as realistic as it can be, or as natural as it can be, because it's my goal. I always aim to do it, but it can't be really drawn just the same way it is in the real life, but whatever we need to achieve some level of realism. So this is how you can do it. Just try to do not separate like various things from each other. Just try to merge it somehow and connect it together, because all the things in real life are a little bit, especially if it's just some part of the iris, for example, because you can see that they're not really separated. The pupil is just a part of the iris. You can't see that there is like really hard edge of the pupil, and then there is just a lighter part of the iris. No, there is some kind of ring around it, which is little lighter than the pupil, but little darker value than the middle part of the iris. So it's just all connected, you know. So just try to draw some little sparks, little races which are coming to this part of the iris, and just make it look. When you look from from far away, you will see some really natural, realistic look, because when you look from right now I just blended the edge, the really dark edge of the iris, to soften the edge, the hard edge. And also I used the graphite absorbed with the blending stamp, because I blended really dark values. So I used this graphite absorbed with the blending stamp for blending also the top of the iris, which is not shaded yet. So I just created some kind of background for the next drawing. And again, you can see me creating little more details, more lines in the middle band of the iris. I try to connect with those lines the edge of the iris and also the ring around the pupil. These lines can be darker or darker, or lighter, or little thinner or little wider. It's always better to draw them not really straight lines, but to curve them a little bit, or to draw them some little curves. And also it's great to draw various kinds of lines. Some of them are darker, some of them are lighter. Of course, this also depends on the reference photo, but for example, in this picture, I really didn't see all those details, because if you like to draw a really realistic eye, it's great to have the high quality picture, really the highest quality ever, because especially the iris is really small. When you take a picture of someone, you can't really see, when you try to zoom it in, you can't see the details of the iris. That's most of the picture you will draw. So I recommend to just draw something on your own, because you can see the basic shapes and some little differences in the values and so on. You can see this, but you can't really see all of the details. So what I recommend is to look at more of pictures of the person to learn more about the irises. But again, there will be probably the same problem with all of the pictures. So if you really can't see on any picture of the person the iris, I recommend to use various kinds of shapes. Just try to keep the values as they are in the picture, but try to add some little details in the values. So, for example, darker lines in here, lighter lines in here, and try to make them various. So try to draw a little wider line, then there will be a thinner line, then there will be a wider line, then there will be a little curved line, and so on. So try to make it various. Try to not to make it little regular. Try not to make it too much regular and symmetrical, because this is not how nature looks like. So this is my advice when you can't really see the details in the photo reference. The iris is partly covered with the upper eyelid, so we won't draw all of it naturally. We will create shadow under the lid, under the upper eyelid. It means this part under the lid will be really dark, but it doesn't mean that we will draw just a black band and that's it. No, we will also create some texture using 4B pencil first, and then we will darken it using 6B pencil. I will also use a blending stump to blend it all together and also blend the edges. And try to be careful around the light reflection. Some reflections are just white, so leave them without any shading, and some reflection has a light value, something like light gray value. So just use some harder pencils to create soft shading. Right now I'm adding a little more texture in the upper part of the iris. Again, not really regular lines, but as I see in the reference, there are some kind of shapes. I can't really see it. Actually, this is another advice. If you, for example, in this picture, as I showed you before, there was really easily you could see that there is like a shadow under the upper eyelid, and you can't really see all of the texture because it's really dark. So what I do, I try to go to the pictures and to edit the picture and add more light, more lightness to the picture. So I can see when you go to the higher lightness, you can see more details in it, because there wouldn't be such a darkness. So this is also how I do it. I add some lightness and I can see more of the texture. So I can draw more of the texture, and then I can go over it with a softer pencil and add more shadows over the texture under the upper eyelid. You can even try to use other references. So as I already shared with you some royalty-free images of eyes, they are really high quality. I tried to find really detailed pictures so you can train the iris on them. And also what I do when I don't really see and I really want to make it really natural, realistic, and I don't want to just to take it from my imagination, I use some more pictures of irises which are really high quality, and I just borrow some of the details from these irises. It's totally legit. I think that if you just don't change the type of the iris, if you just keep the very basic shapes in the iris and you will just add some details borrowed from other pictures, I will say that's totally fine. Of course, you don't have to draw all the details. If you just see some blurry iris, you can draw it, because when you are far away from the picture, you can't really see all the details. But for example, me, I try to draw really bigger drawings of eyes, and I think that it would be really such a pity not to draw some details into the iris. So this is what I do also. And I will leave it like this, because in the further drawing I will draw the lid and also the lashes, which will be over the iris partly, especially the white light reflection. I would be happy if you have any questions, just let me know in the comment section, or you can send me an email. I will add the email address to the description. And also, if you like to draw this iris as well, please send me the drawing to my email, and please also tag the original artist, makeup artist, whose the photo reference is. I will also add the link to her Instagram to the description box. So that's all from me. I hope this video was helpful. I gave you some tips and some advices. I really felt like they could be helpful for you while drawing an iris. I also tried to add more tips than I usually share on my social media. Yeah, if you have any questions, just do not hesitate to ask me. Also, if you didn't understand something I said, because sometimes I can tell it way you don't understand. I totally get it, because we are not together in person, and we can't explain it like the way we could if we were in person together. So of course, do not hesitate to ask me anything, and I would be also very grateful if you tell me what do you want me to explain next. For example, you're struggling in drawing some particular part of the portrait or anything, just tell me, and I will try to make the video as soon as possible. Also, I would like to thank you for all your support. I'm really sorry I didn't upload the video earlier. I really tried to, but I'm so busy at this moment that I do not even have time to sleep the time I slept before. So I don't want to complain about anything. Not, I really love what I do. I just simply was so busy that I couldn't make it earlier, but I really promise I will upload another tutorial next week, and I will try to make them coming earlier. So thank you for your support and everything, and I will see you in my next video.